Hello guys, today on the channel Laravel Business, let's talk about business and specifically business of open source. And I want to share 6 stories with you, 6 stories I've compiled from people who used to work on open source for quite a while and then one way or another earned money from that. Because by definition open source is, well, free. You release something to the world for free, the source is open, and it's pretty hard to earn money from that. You can introduce donations via PayPal or Patreon or something like that, but usually people are not that active in donations. So that's why I want to emphasize the success stories of people who actually did it. So I will show you the links to videos or podcasts or articles and briefly will comment, and if you want, all the links will be in the description of this video and you will be able to read all the stories in details, because if I just read them for you it will be like 2 hours of video. So summary of 6 success stories, and let's start with a guy called Samuel Sthl. He's from Czech Republic and he made $11,000 in 5 days with an open source project. And you may have heard of that open source project. It is Tenancy for Laravel, multi-tenancy package. It used to be a package, and then on top of that package he created SaaS boilerplate and released it pretty recently. That's a pretty recent success story in July 2020. And of course, don't be fooled by that 11,000 in 5 days. 5 days was just the launch. In fact, there were 2 years of hard work and iterations behind that package. And that's what the article is about. It's pretty long, so I will link that in the description. What fascinated me is that Samuel is only 18 years old, should be. He was 16 in the beginning. And then in the middle of the story, which was mildly successful, so the package wasn't really popular, at some point he found someone to support the project financially. So he got 5,000 euros from a person who sponsored the development of the features for them specifically, but also it was a start of the whole SaaS boilerplate thing. Probably the most impressive thing by Samuel was a Twitter thread. 2 weeks before the launch of SaaS boilerplate, he released a Twitter thread on how to write better code, cleaner code in Laravel. And it went really viral all over Laravel community with 2,000 likes, shares on Reddit, and I've shared it all over the place in my newsletter and Twitter. So it's a thread of random examples of Laravel code, but really quality ones. You can see that each tweet receives hundreds of likes and retweets and attention. So just from that, I assume he received quite a lot of followers on Twitter, and then when he released SaaS Boilerplate, he released it also as a tweet, as a Twitter thread, showing all the functionality in a visual way, easy to consume, and then at the end of that Twitter thread, there was a 48 hours discount. That's pretty important when you release something, that limited time discount, and then it took off. So lesson from this story is be deliberate, be strategic when you launch something. Prepare your material, your landing page. In this case it was Twitter thread. Maybe you have other channels like Reddit, like your community, your newsletter, forum, whatever. Our second story is about Caleb Porzio, who just blogged about earning 100k per year on GitHub sponsors. And GitHub sponsors is a pretty new thing, and to earn that money on that new platform is pretty revolutionary. But what he did revolutionary as well is his open source work. So after leaving his job in 2018, he started playing around with a few technologies that were interested to him, and later that became Alpine.js and Livewire. Laravel Livewire, which took off like a skyrocket. It became pretty popular in Laravel community with the message that hit really deeply in the heart of backend developers emotionally, that Laravel backend developers don't need to learn Vue.js or React or any front-end framework. They can stay backender and write just PHP code for the front end. It's not that simple, but still, the message is this one. And when it became pretty popular, Caleb came up with a business model called sponsorware. So he invited to sponsor him on GitHub, and then he would release some package only when he reaches the amount of sponsors on GitHub. And sponsorship means monthly donation, something like Patreon actually, but just on GitHub, which is native for developers as a platform. And then things took off really well, and that article actually illustrates all the story how he now earns more than 100k a year from GitHub sponsorship. And the fascinating thing here is that you don't need many followers, many supporters. To earn 100k a year, mathematically it may be enough to have only 600 people sponsoring you. It depends on how you structure the sponsorship deals. So I guess after his article he introduced those smaller tiers, but at the time of writing the article I remember he was mentioning that you need to raise the minimum prices, minimum sponsorship. But anyway, 600 people doesn't sound like a lot of people. If you are really active in the community and if you start a movement like Caleb did with Livewire, you need only that number to sustain your lifestyle. So that's probably the main lesson from that story from Caleb. You don't need that many supporters, but those supporters should be strong backing you. Next example in our open source success stories is a company from Belgium called Spatie. And probably you know them if you are in Laravel world. They have a really big amount of popular packages. You probably have used them, one or two at least. So Laravel Permission, Laravel Backup, Media Library, Query Builder, and many more. And I remember back in the day, in 2016, I've interviewed Freek from Spatie. That was September 2016, so almost 4 years ago, and they already had 80 Laravel packages. So they started in Laravel world really early, and then grew with bigger amount of packages, open source work, presenting at conferences, and huge amount of free work to the community of Laravel. And then at some point in 2017-18, both Spatie as a company and Freek as a person started to release some interesting stuff which are not free. Personally, Freek released with his friend Matthias O'Deer monitoring service, which is pretty popular now. Then there was Spatie and Beyond Code with Marcel Posiot, collaboration to launch Laravel error tracking as Flare. Then another product, Mail Coach, to send newsletters. Pretty recently they started to release courses, so Freek is really active just putting out videos and live coding and conferences videos, and some of that is packaged as a course, Laravel package training. You can purchase that for 129 euros. So that's also under Spatie label. At the bottom you can see that. And there's another new course coming in 2020 from Spatie, but not by Freek, by his teammate Brand, but also under Spatie label. So see how much stuff is going on around Spatie brand. I had even a hard time preparing for this video with how many links are there around. Probably I've missed a ton of them, because they released probably something else which I didn't mention here. But see what is happening here. For a long time, for like 5 years, they were just releasing packages and contributing to open source. And then they built such a personal, strong brand with both Spatie and Freek personally, that now they can release pretty much anything and people would follow them just because it's them, it's their name. So lesson from here is build your personal brand or your company brand, whatever you're comfortable with. Okay, we're halfway through and 3 more stories to go. This is the guy Nuno Maduro, originally from Portugal, now lives in Paris, France, and works at Algolia. But before Algolia, he started being really active in open source community with Laravel Zero, Laravel Collision, Larastan, and many more packages, which were impressive enough to impress Laravel elite community, even Taylor himself. And there was an article from Laravel 5.6, his package Collision was officially part of Laravel. And even now, if you look at Laravel repository, default Laravel, you can see Nuno Maduro Collision as a dev dependency in Laravel core. And speaking of Laravel core, just recently Nuno announced that he is leaving Algolia to become a part of Laravel core team. So he was officially hired now by Taylor Otwell, by Laravel as a company, and after his very hard work with open source community, also talks at conferences, helping the community with whatever he can, now he's part of Laravel. It's not directly earning from the product, but the products were so impressive that he's kind of interviewed himself into a job position. So that's another way to earn from open source, is just to get a job that you dreamed of. Next on our list is this guy, Adam Wathan. You probably heard of him in Laravel world, and he has archive of articles dating back to 2013. That's when he roughly started working with Laravel. Then he became pretty active conference speaker, and on the YouTube channel Conference Talk you can see a lot of LaraCon talks. Some of them are really popular and went pretty viral, especially that CRUD by design. I recommend that to everyone who wants to simplify their controllers, for example. And he was also pretty active in open source. One of the fun facts, did you know that Adam was one of the bigger contributors to Laravel Valet? Alongside Taylor Otwell, so 92 commits. And then at some point he started to release products. Refactoring Two Collections was a book which brought him $60K and allowed him to quit his job. So that's his own article, and also he talked about that at a conference called MicroConf, which is not for developers but more for entrepreneurs. And I will link that in the description as well. So he goes through all the strategy, how to launch the product, what is the sequence of emails and tweets and all of that. And I really encourage you to watch this video about how deliberate he is with everything he does. So every tweet is really thought of, every design detail, and he's very polished. And then Adam started firing product after product. Test-driven Laravel is still the best course to this day, although released in 2016, the best course on test-driven Laravel I know, and it was really popular as well financially. Then I found 2018 review by Adam where he talks about another project, Advanced View Component Design, and then he released a book called Refactoring UI with a friend Steve Sugar, so this one. The book about user interface for developers, which is a really big problem, so they hit hard on a problem for a specific audience. And if you take a look at the price of the book, it's $79 or $149. And in his year in review, if you want to count someone else's money, Adam mentions that he sold over 6,000 copies in the first 2 weeks. So 6,000 copies times $100, and you can imagine the amount of revenue roughly. Then if we follow Adam's career later, he started Tailwind CSS. And at first, it was a big jump for him going full-time on Tailwind CSS as a framework. That was 1.5 years ago. And then at some point they released Tailwind UI, which is library of components on Tailwind. And I found this tweet where Adam mentions that in the first 3 days they earned $500,000 just on that. Pretty impressive. And now the latest on that, they are hiring one person, already hired actually. And meanwhile, Adam is pretty active working on that himself. And one of his tweets I wanted to emphasize is that they will release some components for Vue, React, and Alpine. And as long as Tailwind, the business, is still in business, they will be maintained for free. So this is the spirit. You build a business from open source project and then reinvest and re-support that open source project from the revenue from the business. And then community follows you, community gladly pays for the premium product to support the open source work. But generally what I've learned from Adam's story is to find a narrow problem for a specific audience. So every release was like test-driven Laravel. Nothing was well written on that topic. Then UI for developers, it's a big problem. Let's release something on that. Tailwind CSS solves the problem of people who hate Bootstrap as a framework. So every product solves a specific problem, and he was really deliberate on everything. And also, I will repeat, if you follow him on Twitter, he's really deliberate on how he presents the information. His Twitter is full of really valuable and viral tips, and after those tips, he released something premium on top of that. And the last on our list is, you probably saw that coming, is Taylor Otwell himself from Laravel. His story is pretty similar. He started as open source developer, created Laravel, then made it better, and then started to release products on Laravel on top of Laravel. And now, as you can see, YouTube video, now he's giving advice to other entrepreneurs. I will link that video in the show notes as well, in the description. And if you go to Laravel.com as a website, and click ecosystem, you see how many products are there released. Most of them actually are free, but some of them paid. Premium products are Vapor, Forge, Envoyer, Nova, Spark, and probably that's it. But you can see how many more are released for free as well. So Taylor is continuing to contribute to open source now as a team of Laravel company, expanding even that. As I mentioned, Nuno is hired now as a new employee. And they can afford that because each of those products were pretty successful. And if you want to read more about the success of the products from business point of view, Taylor is pretty active recently in the last year or so, giving the advice and telling his story, which is pretty simple story. He's calling himself Average Joe, who is trying to solve his own problem, and luckily there are more people who would use the products. So you can listen to that hour-long interview on Indie Hackers. I totally recommend that. And a random revenue number from that podcast, Taylor mentions that Laravel ecosystem does little more than $3 million a year in revenue. pretty impressive. And one more resource from Taylor himself. He has a podcast called Laravel Snippet, and as a mini series of that podcast, episodes 15 to 18, he shared his own ideas how to create successful products. So choosing the idea, building audience, how to motivate yourself, and how to have a vision on great quality, I totally recommend you to listen to that as well. So these are 6 success stories, business success stories from people who started with open source. And from out of all of them, I took one lesson to myself. All of them didn't start as a business. They started with something for open source, some project, some idea, and they were passionate about that particular topic. Whether it was PHP framework or test-driven Laravel or multi-tenancy or whatever, everyone took their idea, took their passion about something, and then that passion grew in a few years' time, usually, grew into something bigger. So I hope this video motivates you to contribute to open source without too much thinking about the money, but the money may come down the road if you are consistent enough, if you find something that other people want and will use and will contribute, or you may start the whole movement around your idea, grow a popular product, and maybe earn from that ecosystem. That's it. These are my thoughts. And if you want to support me as an open source creator or creator of those videos, there are 2 ways you can do that. There are 2 ways how I can earn money, or actually my team can earn money, from our Laravel Quick Admin Panel generator, which is at quickadminpanel.com, or you can enroll in one of my courses at laraveldaily.teachable.com. Also, subscribe to the channel to get more videos about Laravel and the business, and see you guys in other videos.